Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Ethereal Alkalaryan podcast.
Welcome, episode number 7.
Number 7.
I believe so.
And today's date is February 26, 2024. Got a few things to talk about. But at the top of the hour, current breaking news, Jacob Rothschild, part of the elite banking family, a wealthy financier, patron of the arts, and philanthropist with close ties to Israel, who broke with his family's fabled banking dynasty at a time of radical change in the world of high finance, has died. He was 87 years old. You guys may have seen this guy. Recognize him. He's a character on The Simpsons. This is somebody that's had a major influence on the stuff that we see going on in the world today. It's believed that the Rothschild family has created the Federal Reserve. Last episode we talked about the Federal Reserve a little bit. Touched on it quite a bit at the end. Of course, if you try to look further into it on mainstream media sources, they will try to say that it's false. Right here, American Jewish community. The Rothschilds are a Jewish banking family that have been accused of secretly controlling the economy, manipulating the weather, and property wars.
And that's the first thing that comes up when you type in Rothschild.
Submit it.
Right, something like that.
Rothschild has become a generic term for Greek manipulated Jewish billionaires. In the 19th century, French anti-Semite Georges Baron under the pseudonym Satan published a pamphlet alleging that Jacob Rothschild was ransom debt in the Battle of Waterloo in 1815.
Francis
Defeat. He returned to London before he was able to make 20 million francs on the stock exchange. This was false. Rothschild did not want to reward battles. Anyway, you know what they're going to say. Supporting the people.
I mean, they have a whole website.
Seriously. But it's pretty common knowledge. Participating in satanic parties, satanic things,
Right, they're all wearing weird
Wicked world, wicked society we're living in. Who's this guy with the hat? I wonder. Just some you know who. But yeah, it's quite interesting. 89? 87 years old. Died. I guess all the baby blood couldn't save him.
Yeah, I guess not.
These people try to live forever because they're afraid to, face their makers in the afterlife.
I think anyone with even a slither of conscience would maybe be scared knowing all the satanic, demonic activities they partake in. Allegedly.
His death was announced on Monday by the Rothschild Foundation, a British charity of which he was the chairman. It did not specify when or where he died or give the cause of death. Mr. Rothschild, more formally the fourth Baron Rothschild, was descended from Mayor Amschel Rothschild, a corn trader in the Jewish ghetto in Frankfurt, who sent 4 of his 5 sons to Vienna, London, Naples, and Paris to seek their fortune in the late 18th and early 19th centuries. For most of the 19th century, the House of Rothschild was the biggest bank in the world by a wide margin. Jonathan Steinberg, an American scholar, wrote in the London Review of Books in 1999. The fortune of Nathan Meyer Rothschild, the son of who founded the bank's London branch, can be compared to that of Bill Gates today. cultivating what Mr. Steinberg called everybody who was anybody at the top of European society during this period. It was against this historical backdrop that Jacob Rothschild joined the London arm of the family's empire at the N.M. Rothschild and Sons Bank in 1963. Until then, he had followed a route familiar to the British elite, educated at Eton College. Eton College, was it Eton or Eton? Eton College, and at Christchurch College, Oxford. At that time, London's traditionally cautious, clubby world of high finance was still 2 decades away from the shift towards free-wheeling capitalism that culminated in the so-called Big Bang of 1986, which brought deregulation to the London Stock Exchange. And British merchants, banks in the city as London's financial district is known, seemed dwarfed by the burgeoning financial might of Wall Street, building pressure from the approaches.
Mr. Rothschild had long favored merging the London branch of his family's financial empire with another merchant bank, S.G. Warburg, but the plan was opposed by his cousin, Evelyn de Rothschild, and his own father, Victor, a scientist and former member of Britain's M15 domestic intelligence agency. He therefore resolved to break away. We must try to make ourselves as much a bank of brains as of money, Mr. Rothschild said in 1965. In a way, he was challenging a culture of family control and secrecy that had distinguished its dealings from the very beginning. As long ago as 1810, family policy excluded female descendants and all son-in-laws from any part of the business, Mr. Steinberg, the scholar, wrote. Each of the initial partners renounced the rights of his wife to have sight of the accounts and swore to allow only direct male descendants to inherit shares. Marriage outside the Rothschilds' Jewish faith was frowned upon. Marriage within the family was not unknown. Yikes. Of 21 marriages involving descendants of Mayer Amschel between 1824 and 1877, no fewer than 15 were between his direct descendants, Mr. Steinberg wrote. While the family rules had softened by the early 1960s, Mr. Rothschild's proposals for a merger with S.G. Warburg collided head-on with tradition. For Victor and Evelyn de Rothschild, the preservation of family control took precedence over expansion, the British historian Neil Ferguson wrote in his book, The House of Rothschild, 1988, a voluminous study of the family. The clash represented a serious rift within the English branch of the family, Mr. Ferguson wrote. The dispute was resolved only in 1980 when the feuding partners agreed that the family bank, M.M. Rothschild and Sons Limited, would operate separately from Mr. Rothschild's breakaway entity, J. Rothschild and Company, whose main assets would be known by their initials, RIT, for Rothschild Investment Trust. Mr. Rothschild retired as head of RIT Capital Partners in 2019. That year, his personal wealth was estimated by the Bloomberg Billionaires Index to be more than $1 billion. Nathaniel Charles Jacob Rothschild was born in Berkshire, England. So was I. On April 29, 1936, to Victor Rothschild, the third Baron Rothschild, and his first wife, Barbara Judith. Mr. Rothschild studied history at Oxford before joining the family bank. After he resigned to head RIT, he became involved in a series of ventures, including an unsuccessful bid in 1989 with other investors to take over British American tobacco for $21 billion.
He maintained a wide network of international connections, acting as deputy chairman of Rupert Murdoch's B-Sky B television and as an advisor to then Prince Charles. He was a member of the International Advisory Board of the Blackstone Group, a leading private equity group, and co-founded the J. Rothschild Assurance Group in 1991, a wealth management company now known as St. James Place. Not all his maneuvers were free of controversy. In 2003, British media reports said he had struck a trusteeship deal with Michael B. Khodorkovsky, a Russian oil tycoon and Putin foe, to transfer Mr. Khodorkovsky's stake in the Yukos oil company to Mr. Rothschild in the event of his arrest. Mr. Khodorkovsky was arrested in October 2003 and later exiled. Mr. Rothschild did not confirm the reports. Alongside his career as a high-powered financier, Mr. Rothschild played an energetic, sometimes secretive role in Israel, overseeing his family's long-running philanthropic activities there as head of the Yad
not shout from the rooftops what we are doing. He took over Yad Hanadiv after the death in 1988 of Dorothy de Rothschild, the foundation's chairwoman and an aunt of his. She bequeathed him him estates in Buckinghamshire, England. The ownership of one of the properties, Wadensum Manor, built by Baron Ferdinand de Rothschild in the 1880s in the style of a French chateau, had already been transferred to the non-profit National Trust in 1957. But Mr. Rothschild struck an unusual deal with the trust to administer the manor as a home for the Rothschilds, collection of an estimated 15,000 works of art and objects, and for his personal collection of Rothschild wines, mainly from the Bordeaux region of France. Mr. Rothschild was a principal benefactor of the manor's restoration and played a part in other ambitious projects, including the regeneration of Somerset House, an 18th century building overlooking the River Thames in London. Among many arts-related positions in Britain and elsewhere, he chaired the trustees of London's National Gallery from 1985 to 1991. Mr. Rothschild married Serena Dunn, a racehorse owner, in 1961. She died in 2019. He had 4 children, Hannah, Beth, Emily, and Nathaniel, and a number of grandchildren. Complete information on his survivors was not immediately available. For all his standing among the world's wealthy elite, Mr. Rothschild was openly critical on some of his peers in the international financial system. In 2012, 4 years after the economic crisis of 2008, he told the Jerusalem Report they had a lot of sympathy with people who protested about some of the excesses in the world of finance. After all, here are characters who have made great fortunes, who have been in charge of systems which have been damaging to many interests in the last 5 to 10 years, he said. They have had enormous benefits, but the banking system as a whole has had a crippling effect in a number of areas throughout the world.
Well, that's interesting that he admitted that.
Yeah, right.
This man single-handedly could have ended world hunger, among other things.
Right. He looks like the guy from The Simpsons.
Yeah.
It's very, they depicted him well.
Yeah, if you try to, let's see. Fact check, of course. No, Jacob Rothschild was not inspiration for Simpsons, Mr. Burns. You don't think so, huh? That's hilarious.
That's crazy. I was posted 8 hours ago. Putting in work.
Look pretty similar to me.
I mean, come on. That's a spitting image.
$500 trillion owns every central bank in the world, financed both sides of every war since Napoleon.
Wow. I mean, that's just morally disgraceful. Seriously.
Yeah, he's had to meet his maker now, so he's probably not in a happy place. But
Can we exit out of something still playing? This is.
Can you tell us about what?
Sorry. The music one was still playing. Or maybe it's not. Never mind. Go ahead.
right, so let's check out this video of when he was confronted. Jacob Rothschild, that is.
Tell us what went on at the Bilderberg meeting this year.
Sorry?
Could you tell us what went on at the Bilderberg meeting this year?
I didn't get that actually, no.
The Bilderberg? You weren't there?
No.
Not this year. What went on last year?
No, I wasn't there last year.
weren't there last
I think
year?
that was my cousin.
Your cousin was there?
Yeah, I think so. Okay.
Do you have a couple minutes for us, Mr. Rothschild? We have a few additional questions.
I was definitely questioning inside of, as I was saying, that the Federal Reserve was one of these organizations. I know, it's one of these organizations that a lot of people say is the source of inhumane projects all across the world because it's a private bank.
That was started by your family.
No, it's completely untrue. I was asked that earlier. It really isn't true. No,
Jekyll
no.
Island? Jekyll Island, 1913, sir. I mean, but sir, just one thing. We could go on about how, you know, your family committed all these acts against society, but we just want to let you know the New World Order has no legitimacy. and that we as a people are not afraid, and we are waking up to the robber barons and the big banksters who are looting
Right.
this economy with the Federal Reserve.
Well,
Well, yeah, nothing to say about that, huh?
Yeah,
Sir,
I mean, him
rob-
walking
as a
away, I
people,
think,
no
speaks
legitimate-
volumes as well.
We just want to let you know the New World Order has no legitimacy, and that we as a people are not afraid, and we are waking up to the robber barons and the big banksters who are looting this
Right.
economy with the Federal Reserve.
well,
What do you, I mean, the Rothschilds family did start the Federal, they divided Europe first,
No.
took over Europe, the Napoleon.
don't exaggerate.
No comment on that, sir?
Wow. I mean, of course he has no comment because he knows what they're saying is true.
Yep. So, yeah, make of it what you want. Jacob Rothschild's dead at 87. And who knows how much that will change what's going on within our society, but at least more people are waking up.
I mean, I think more people are waking up, but it's not like he's the be-all, end-all Rothschild, right? I mean,
Oh, no.
there's plenty of them.
And I guess InfoWars was talking about Jacob Rothschild Satanic was trending on Twitter. I haven't gone on Twitter to see that.
Yeah, neither have I.
But
I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of talk now that he's passed away.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of just puts the light on it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's check out this video, The Submersive Origins of Communism by Robert Seffer. Yes, just a small segment of it. Check it out.
The general public thinks that communism caters to the working class and do not seem to realize that wealthy, powerful men, its priests and kings, secretly manipulate and control most communist governments while living in free societies. Among this class are the Rockefellers, Morgans, Schiffs, Warburgs, and most of.
So think of all the people who died in these communist countries. In
Right.
China, Russia, and they were literally funded by these people. If you look farther into it, who funded the Communist Chinese Party, it's people from that tribe,
Right.
Most of the Rothschilds. These powerful people conceive of themselves as masterminds and rulers of a new world order, which they believe will eventually succeed and supersede all governments. Their plan calls for the complete elimination of marriage and the family, so that all women would belong to all men, and all men would belong to all women. Children born from promiscuous unions, which would be the norm, would then be raised anonymously by the state and indoctrinated from birth. The atheistic communist state would therefore promote and encourage sexual depravity and immorality in its societies, which would include alternative lifestyles that would weaken the traditional family unit. This would obviously necessitate the subversion of spirituality and religious freedoms, which brings us back to Jacob Frank, who, like Zevi before him, that converted to Islam, himself along with thousands of his followers converted to Catholicism in 1759, not only for the purpose of imitating their Sabbatean role model, but in an effort to subvert and destroy the faith from within. The elite ruling class, through initiation and membership, would be given the secret keys to Kabbalistic Tantra and internal alchemy through techniques of harnessed orgasm and semen retention, while the working masses would be encouraged to constantly fornicate through vices like freely available porn, promiscuity, and various forms of immorality and alternative lifestyles. Historian Gershom Scholem called Frank, quote, one of the most frightening phenomena in the whole of Jewish history. He taught that one could appear to be a religious Jew or some other religious denomination on the outside and in reality be a Frankist or influenced by them, pushing a secular, liberal, progressive, communist, far-left ideology to usher in a global totalitarian state that would be controlled and governed by their atheist-promoting sect.
Sabbatine
Do you believe in God? No.
Rabbi Marvin Antelman writes, quote, while Gershom Scholem seems to have lost the Frankists somewhere in Warsaw in the 1920s, and the Donme in Salonika during World War II with the extermination of the Jews there, I have found their descendants in the United States to be very active in Marxist, Leninist, and Third World activities. They have attempted to convert the civil rights movement into a black revolution, and are attempting to further polarize this country by promoting women's liberation. The Frankists today no longer call themselves by that name. The organization has grown into an international group labeled by outsiders as the cult of the all-seeing eye. In the United States, they're most active in Boston, New York, Washington, and San Francisco. Their ranks and sponsors include some very famous people, numbering diplomats, senators, governors, and clergymen in their ranks.
Boston, New York, Washington, and San Francisco. Isn't that interesting how those are some of the worst cities in our country?
Right, right. Not doing well.
Ranks. They also agitate for abortion on demand, which according to Judaism is murder, as well as for affirmative action hiring of special minorities. Suffice it to say that the Frankists and their elite played a leading role in the development of communism, and that they continue to be an elite today within the wider communist circle, but nevertheless tend to be standoffish, forming a clique within a clique, as they did during the latter 18th and 19th centuries, when they chose to make Illuminati Masonic lodges their stomping grounds. In Jewish circles, they dominate the Reform movement at many levels, the Anti-Defamation League, and the conservative movement at the highest level. In the book titled Jerusalem, a treaty on ecclesiastical authority in Judaism by Moses Mendelssohn, who was a Sabbatine Frankist that promoted secular progressive Reform Judaism, on page 257 of Volume 1, it says, quote, the chiefs of the sect carry about them a badge or medal, by which they make themselves known to one another and to the members. It is of the size of a half-crown piece, and coined to the Abraham coin mentioned in the Talmud. A characteristic of the divide and conquer psychology of the communist movement has been its ability to instigate divisiveness amongst groups. Over the years, it has fomented revolution by accentuating differences between blacks and whites, youths and elders, landlords and tenants, Christians and Jews, Muslims and Christians, and with the advent of women's lib between men and women, even husband and wife. One tactic that the Reform movement desires to implement, which is another way of saying secular, progressive, or liberal, was to divide Jews, and this was achieved through the introduction of Reform or secular Judaism, meaning communist, socialist, atheist, and egalitarian globalism without borders or nationalist or ancestral identity.
So they keep us fighting against each other, especially these Abrahamic religions, which most of them have corrupted, because they were constructed basically by these people. For example, Christ wasn't a Christian,
Right.
but what he was preaching was natural law, essentially, dharma.
Yeah.
So what the answer to all this and how to defeat this is a return to natural law, Sanatana Dharma,
Yeah.
the eternal natural way. That's my belief, and that's what these people are completely against.
Right.
So that's like their greatest fear, is that people like completely separate from materialism
Yeah.
and being dependent upon the state,
Right.
upon the government, upon the elites, and become self-sustainable, have
Right.
families, grow their own food, educate their own children.
Right. which is such a challenging feat when you really think about it, because so many people are indoctrinated in a certain way of living.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and they made it so hard, especially for our generations, for people to buy homes. And
Right.
now they have people pouring across the border. And then meanwhile, people like Joy Reid and, puppets,
Yeah.
mouthpieces for the left and for these people, these demonic forces, they're saying that we shouldn't be having kids. Meanwhile, they have illegals pouring across our borders,
Right. Right, and these are billionaires. They have the money to fix all the problems, put their time and money into other things, but like look what they're doing,
Yeah.
Clearly they have an agenda.
Yep. It's just corrupted on so many levels.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to people having a misunderstanding of history. They even have a misunderstanding of their own faith, and that's something that's really hard to kind of take a step back from and realize maybe isn't like the truth, right?
Yeah.
But that's hard for people when their families and how they grew up is been like that.
Yeah.
And then we all have a cell phone in our hands, and what's being pushed onto the mind is so opposite of the natural way.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not saying Christ or Jesus never existed. I'm saying he sacrificed himself. He was the Son of God, and it's hard for people to like grasp that or look farther than just the Bible and Christianity and this stuff that was 2,000 years old when there's so much more,
Right.
that's deeper. Like Jesus, aka Isa Putra, had Christ consciousness, which is Christ, Krishna, there's a similarity there. And Krishna was Jesus God came down to earth in human form 5,000 years ago,
Right.
But, no one wants to like look that far back, and when you do, they completely like misinterpret the basic like ideology of like Hinduism, because Western Hinduism is not what it's actually meant, like what it actually is.
Right. It's been also corrupted. Yeah.
As has Buddhism.
Right. As has the list goes on. Right.
Yeah. So, but this is something for everyone to like look into on their own and go on their own like spiritual journey and decide what they want to do. Do they want to continue this path that we're on, or do they want to be a part of the change? Like, you have to be willing to fight. That's my thing with like Christianity, is people are far too passive. And when I found out about the Vedic scriptures and the Krishna consciousness movement and the fact that Krishna led Arjuna into battle and told him not to be afraid, of going to war, and just the whole, concept of reincarnation and the fact, or the belief that the soul is eternal, it just resonates much more with me,
Right.
So these people are completely detached from that, understanding.
Right.
But it's all to be a part of this club. Like, how many of these people are just demonically like possessed, and how many of them just want to be like famous and live this lifestyle and are willing to sell their souls to do that,
Right.
And it's really sad. It gets really heavy, and then you see the things that they're doing to children, because children are the closest thing to God,
Mm-hmm.
So.
Right.
And, thank God that we live in this country where we're able to speak freely and fight against these evils. And that's what, I'm trying to like wake the people up to and continue to fight for. And, it's for as long as I have the ability to. Like, I'm here, you know.
Right. Absolutely.
So, you know, there's these people who have infiltrated our country and our government, and it's just gotten out of hand. Wow, here's an interesting video that I see just popped up. Arab League shocks the world, humiliates Israel at ICJ. Maybe we can check this out just a little bit. I haven't seen it myself, so this will be my live reaction to it.
Mr. President, distinguished members of the Court, it's a great honour and privilege to appear before you and to represent the League of Arab States. The Palestinian people have been denied the exercise of their legal right to self-determination through the more than century-long violent, colonial, racist effort to establish a nation-state exclusively for the Jewish people in the land of mandatory Palestine. When this began after the First World War, the Jewish population of that land was 11%. Forcibly implementing Zionism in this demographic context has necessarily involved the extermination or forced displacement of some of the non-Jewish Palestinian population, the exercise of domination over and subjugation, dispossession and immiseration of remaining non-Jewish Palestinians, the emigration to that land of Jewish people, regardless of any direct personal link, and the denial of Palestinian refugees the right to return, all operating through a racist distinction privileging Jewish people over non-Jewish Palestinian people. This has necessitated serious violations of all the fundamental Jos Kogan's and erga omnes norms of international law. The right of self-determination, the prohibitions on aggression, genocide, crimes against humanity, racial discrimination, apartheid and torture, and the core protections of IHL. Today, I will address, first, violations of international law arising out of the regime of racial domination, apartheid, perpetrated against the Palestinian people across the entire land of historic Palestine. And then, second, the existential illegality of Israel's occupation of the Palestinian Gaza Strip and West Bank, including East Jerusalem, since 1967. As a necessary prerequisite, I must begin with the special right granted to the Palestinian people in the League Covenant. The legal right of self-determination of the Palestinian people originates in the sacred trust obligations of Article 22 of the League Covenant, part of the Versailles Treaty. Palestine, an A-class mandate under British colonial rule, was, after the First World War, supposed to have its existence as an independent state provisionally recognised, a sui generis right of self-determination. The UK and other members of the League Council attempted to bypass this, incorporating the 1917 Balfour Declaration commitment to establishing a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine into the instrument stipulating how the mandate would operate.
And for those who don't know, Adolf Hitler was trying to send them to, I think, Morocco?
Madagascar.
Madagascar, that's right. Jewish. But they didn't want to go. The Madagascar plan, there you go. The Nazis and the Jews, the Madagascar plan. On December 9th, 1938, the Madagascar Plan was a proposal for a Jewish settlement devised by the Nazi regime in the late 1930s. On December 9th, 1938, French Foreign Minister George Bonnet informed the German Foreign Minister Joachim von Ribbentrop that in order to rid France of 10,000 Jewish refugees, it would be necessary to ship them elsewhere. At that time, the Nazi regime considered mass immigration to be the final solution to the Jewish problem.
On March 5th, 1938, the SS officer in charge of forced Jewish immigration, Adolf Eichmann, was commissioned to assemble material to provide the chief of the security police, Reinhard Heydrich, with a foreign policy solution as it had been negotiated between Poland and France, i.e. the Madagascar Plan. Temporarily shelved in the wake of the war, the project was taken up again after the fall of France in the summer of 1940. You want me to keep going?
No, we don't have to. Just,
right.
You got the gist of it.
Yeah. You guys can look into it more.
And this is even in the Jewish library,
right.
You think if he really wanted to, like, exterminate all of them and what they want you to believe his final solution was, do you think he would go through all this trouble to, like, try to help them?
Right. Giving you, like, setting you up, you know?
So, but they didn't want that.
Right.
So, yeah, they chose to go to land that was already inhabited by the Palestinians. You can argue that the Jews were there before, hundreds of years ago, but as it says in the Bible, those who claim to be Jews but are not. I'm not talking about Talmudic Jews that were there 100 years ago, so like the ones that are there today. Not saying that they're all bad, I'm just saying it's discussing what's been happening to the Palestinians, and this is interesting to see the Arab League speaker here calling them out on those atrocities and pushing back against the globalist agenda, specifically Israel, its prime minister, and the Zionists. Go ahead and keep playing. I'll be right back. Give me 1 second.
However, the Council had no legal power to bypass the covenant in this way. It acted ultra vires, and the relevant provisions were legally void. There was and is no legal basis in that mandate instrument for either a specifically Jewish state in Palestine or the UK's failure to discharge the sacred trust obligation to implement Palestinian self-determination. After the Second World War, a self-determination right applicable to colonial peoples generally crystallized in international law. For the Palestinian people, this essentially corresponded to and supplemented the pre-existing covenant right regarding the same single territory. The 1947 proposal to partition Palestine was contrary to this, the Arab rejection and affirmation of the legal status quo. In 1948, then, Palestine was, legally, a single territory with a single population enjoying a right of self-determination on a unitary basis.
Israel has the right to defend themselves. How many times we hear that in the news? What about the Palestinians' right to defend themselves?
Despite this, a state of Israel specifically for Jewish people was proclaimed in 1948 by those controlling 78%, more than three-quarters of Palestine, accompanied by the forced displacement of a significant number of the non-Jewish Palestinian population, the Nakba catastrophe. This illegal secession was an egregious violation of Palestinian self-determination. Israel's statehood was recognized, and Israel admitted as a UN member despite this illegality. Israel is not the legal continuation or successor of the mandate. This violation of Palestinian self-determination is ongoing and unresolved. Two key elements are, first, Palestinian people not displaced from the land proclaimed to be of Israel in 48, and their descendants, have been forced to live as citizens, presently they constitute 17.2%, of a state conceived to be of and for another racial group, under the domination of that group, necessarily treated as second class because of their race. Second, Palestinian people displaced from that land and their descendants cannot return. These are serious breaches of the right of self-determination, the prohibitions of racial discrimination and apartheid, and the right of return. They must end immediately. As if this ongoing Nakba was not catastrophic enough, in 1967, Israel captured the remaining 22% of historic Palestine, the Gaza Strip and West Bank, including East Jerusalem, the Nakba. It's maintained that use of force to remain in control for the 57-year period since. For more than half a century then, a state defined to be of and for Jewish people exclusively has governed the entire land of historic Palestine and the Palestinian people there.
Interestingly, I mean, for those that are listening, he's speaking at the International Court of Justice. I don't know what the I stands for, but but they, I mean, what do you think would come of this? He's just saying it so people know?
Yeah.
But what do you think the International Court of Justice would even do?
Well,
just saying how much power these people have within all these constructs.
yeah, that's why I'm optimistic and I'm happy to see that
People's doing this, right?
Yeah, that he's doing this and that he's making it known, and hopefully more people will push back against it. Basically,
Right.
You can't buy everybody out,
Right.
That's my hopes. There's right and wrong in the world. There's these people that try to gain influence, but I feel like they haven't controlled everybody. Like similarly to what Burkell was talking about,
Right.
Who elected George Soros to dictate laws and calling out the Federal Reserve and whatnot.
Right.
So, as he says here.
Of course, high taxes are extremely high here in the United States. I give you that. You're right in that. But that's not the real problem. The real problem is not the high taxes themselves, but the fact that they are not even really funding the government. But even those high taxes, higher than a lot of places in the world, but even those taxes are really funding the government. So who's financing the government?
Just printing money.
Government is financed by treasury bonds. Paper.
Mm-hmm.
And who buys the treasury bonds? Mostly the Fed. And how does the Fed buy them? By printing money. But what backing does the Fed have for that money being printed? The treasury bonds themselves. So basically, you finance the government by printing money out of thin air. Someone could ask, well, so if the government can print the limited amounts of money out of thin air, why do they collect taxes?
To maintain the illusion.
Right.
I mean, in theory, it would make sense, right? If they can print unlimited amounts of money, why would they need taxes for?
So
The
we're
answer
on
is
the brink
simple, but
of
it's
this
very
whole thing
shocking.
collapsing.
Right.
The real problem is that you pay high taxes only to uphold the illusion that you are funding the government, which you are not. It's shocking, but it's true. The government is funded by money printing, paper backed with paper, a bubble that will inevitably burst. The situation is even worse than it seems, because if most Americans and the rest of the world were to become aware of this farce, confidence in your currency would be lost, the dollar would fall, and the Western civilization with it. If the next president of the United States doesn't make the necessary policies and structural changes, sooner or later that bubble will burst. There's still time. You don't have to make the same mistakes we did in the 60s and the 70s. You can still jump before the water boils. Winning the election isn't enough to solve these problems. They will not simply go away as a consequence of an electoral result. It will take a total re-engineering of the government, top to bottom. It will entail making difficult decisions, like the ones we made in El Salvador since 2019, and they're already paying off. It will be hard. The system will push back, but you have the right to determine your own fate.
Yep, and that's exactly what Hitler did when he came into power. Separated from, the banking system, and refused to pay the debt, built his country back up from nothing.
Right. It's possible.
Yep. And that's what they're afraid of, is us knowing that we don't need them. We need national capitalism, not this global Jewish capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
We have to end the Federal Reserve, hold these people accountable, and take our country back. Here's an interesting article that I found. These people have been getting away with too much for too long. And here's an example. This is from February 22nd, just a few days ago. House of Horrors, Rabbi takes cushy deal after pleading guilty to enslaving 30 women.
That's horrible.
Let's check out this video. House of Horrors, Rabbi takes cushy deal after charges of enslaving women. A Jerusalem rabbi accused of enslaving 30 women in a cult-like home, dubbed the House of Horrors, has pleaded guilty to lesser charges. In return for a lax sentence of community service and cash compensation to his victims, according to reports. Ramadi had been charged with enslavement, minor assault, and obstruction of justice, but reached a holding people in conditions akin to slavery. The deal came with a sentence of just 9 months of community service and $34,000 in damages owed to his victims, and was reached after 11 women declined to testify because they were too traumatized to face him.
This is terrible. There's people in prison for weed charges, for marijuana charges. And this guy gets just community service.
The case grabbed headlines in Israel after Ramonti's 2020 arrest, with police labeling the rabbi a cult leader who used violence, intimidation, and tales of eternal damnation to indoctrinate and control his voters.
New Tundra? Truck.
Minor assault and obstruction of justice.
And enslavement. I mean,
they had to ask him for permission for everything, consult him over every simple action, police told the Times of Israel after his arrest.
Ramadi began gathering women around him in 2008 by presenting himself as an enlightened religious leader who knew the true path to salvation. He invited the women to live in his home, which he'd renamed the Be'er Miriam Seminary, where they lived on moldering mattresses spread throughout 3 bedrooms, had no hot water, and faced constant leaks and decrepit conditions. Ramadi moved to a neighboring home as the ranks of his followers grew. At some points, more than 30 women were living within the cramped confines of this house, with some reports saying as many as 50 women, along with children, lived there, according to prosecutors. The rabbi charged the women about $220 per month for a bed in the house, or about $170 per month to share a mattress with another resident. While at the house, the women attended daily lessons where Ramadi plied them with his teachings, which included renouncing all personal desires to focus their energies towards spirituality. Ramadi filled the void of personal responsibility for them, prosecutors argued, making all decisions for them and in turn taking large portions of their pay from jobs they worked outside of classes. To control the women, prosecutors said Ramadi frightened them by telling them they would face horrific harm at the hands of otherworldly forces if they disobeyed him, isolated them from their families, and turned the women against one another to police each other. One common punishment in the house was forcing the women to burn their fingers in fire to simulate hell, the Times of Israel reported, or making them eat hot peppers. Rumors about Ramadi's conduct have surrounded him for years. He was first arrested in 2015, but was released after several members of his group testified on his behalf.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Sure, there was a lot of bribery involved in that as well.
I mean, even at the end of the sentencing, that's he you know, he's just buying his way out of it, basically. I mean, I think those women deserve money and for him to be locked up.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes you think that he's not going to continue to, hurt people.
Right.
These people are despicable.
I mean, so many crimes in America that are completely heinous and immoral they just get a slap on the wrist.
Right. Well, in America, there's this thing where, these pedophiles are allowed to flee to Israel. There's a whole investigation on it. And this video, it's actually on YouTube still. It has how many views?
1 million views.
1 million views from 4 years ago. Check this one out.
A CBS News investigation has uncovered a loophole that allows accused and convicted American pedophiles to escape justice by moving to Israel. So Ian Lee has been following this for more than a year, and he traveled to Israel for this investigation. He worked with a group that tracks people accused of sex crimes, which estimates dozens of Americans have used this loophole.
So he's 6'2".
We are on a stakeout looking for this man, Jimmy Julius Caro, 48 years old, and wanted on charges of sexually assaulting a 9-year-old girl in Oregon back in 2000 and a 5-year-old girl in Israel in 2001. He's considered dangerous. But these photos are a few years old, so we don't know if he'll look the same. He remains elusive. Previous attempts to capture him have failed.
Obviously, the fear that he would somehow figure out that anyone's looking for him and bolt. He just called his number.
Shauna Aronson got a tip that Caro's expected at this clinic near Tel Aviv.
Who's going to call?
She's with JCW, Jewish Community Watch, an organization that hunts down accused pedophiles who flee to Israel from the U.S., exploiting a process called Law of Return, whereby any Jewish person can move to Israel and automatically gain citizenship.
The ease with which pedophiles seem able to use this law as an escape route haunts victims like Mendy Hall, who says he was abused from age 8 by a teacher at an Orthodox Jewish school in Los Angeles.
So your classroom is right here. How does it feel being back?
I was very anxious and, stressed coming back. A lot of memories coming to my mind.
Memories of his alleged abuser, Mordechai Yom Tov, who taught him Hebrew studies when he was just 8 years old.
So in the beginning, he would just rub me outside of my pants, and then I would say about 3 to 4 months later, he started doing it again.
Reaching down your
Yeah,
hands.
reaching down.
Why did you feel like you couldn't tell anyone?
I was scared. I was traumatized.
He can barely talk about
people think of me.
You can just see it in his eyes.
Yom Tov pled guilty in 2002 to sexually abusing and committing lewd acts against 3 other boys. He served jail time, but when he was released, he violated his probation and, according to JCW, fled to Israel with help from individuals within the Orthodox Jewish community. JCW tracked Yom Tov down and confronted him with a hidden camera from individuals, but when he was released, he violated his probation and, according to JCW, fled to Israel with help from individuals within the Orthodox Jewish community. JCW tracked Yom Tov down and confronted him with a hidden camera in Jerusalem, where he admitted to illegally fleeing the United States with help and using a fake passport to enter Israel.
I was supposed to stay for 5 years in some city. I was supposed to on some city, so I was supposed to go to the police station. I left within a week later.
He had this message for his victims.
I'm very sorry.
The other person in this video is Meir Seawald, the founder of Jewish Community Watch. He tells CBS News Yom Tov's case isn't uncommon in the Orthodox community.
The same thing that's going on in the Catholic Church right now around the world, the exact same thing happens in our community. The rabbis say, you know what, he promised he's going to go for therapy, he's never going to do it again. Boom, he's in another community. A few years later, he's at the same thing, and we hear more allegations of the person continue to abuse children.
And often, those abusers end up in Israel. Rabbi Yehuda Oppenheimer says he unwittingly helped Caro escape.
There was nothing that raised any red flags up to the point where he was moving to Israel.
Well, I wish I could say that, but unfortunately I can't say that. So he had violated his parole, and now they were looking for him. He said that there was something in the past when he was young, but nothing ever happened since.
Pedophiles always reoffend.
But you gotta help me. I felt that I could trust him. So I wrote him a letter, and he bought a ticket, and he left.
Caro is accused of abusing more children when he got to Israel.
What was that like for you when you found that out?
Punch to the gut. It was very painful.
Rabbi Oppenheimer says the reason he came forward is to shine a light on the process of accused pedophiles fleeing, to help ensure it doesn't happen again. Back at the stakeout, an ambulance pulls up and a man steps out. It's Caro.
That was definitely him. Oh my God. Okay.
The police are called and eventually arrive. His days on the run are over as he's led away.
Did you assault the girl in the United States? No. Did you flee Israel because you assaulted the girl in the United States? Have you ever assaulted any girls in Israel? Do you know that you're wanted by Interpol?
There's relief as police escort him to their car. This marks the end to a months-long manhunt.
Oh my gosh! Can I give you a hug? I have something I need to tell you. Yeah. Okay. We found him, and he was just arrested.
I think they're gonna say it here, but it's very rare that these people who flee to Israel ever hold court in Israel.
Right.
You know, and I think that goes back to just how they protect their own.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I think this is theatrics that he's being arrested here. Like, look how the cops are like. I don't know. It's just.
They're almost like trying to show, like, hey, look, we do this.
Yeah.
But it's probably an anomaly.
I mean, I'd be throwing the dude in the back of the car, fucking giving him the.
Right. We don't carry our arms broken. Get in there. Nasty pedophile.
He was just arrested.
Wow, oh my gosh.
Amuna, not her real name, is the person on the other end of the line. She was a little girl when Caro entered her life.
I was 4 or 5 years old. My mother was on bed rest. My father's a rabbi, so he wasn't really home. He used to come to our house. We used to play games, and then it became sexual. I'm going to give you a cookie because you do it so nicely. It's all about the cookie. It's all about lying, and it's all about being so evil to a little child. He also threatened me he would kill my parents, he would choke me, he would hold me, he would kidnap me.
How did that affect you?
A lot. Yeah. It affected my whole life. My whole life is around this sexual abuse and rape.
Amuna turned to therapy and art to help deal with the trauma.
This is in my bedroom and my inspiration.
She paints and writes poetry, but she's still angry that it was allowed to happen in the first place.
What are your thoughts on him being able to come to Israel and flee the United States?
It brings up a lot of anger and a lot of frustration towards the Israeli system.
Shauna says the failure begins in the U.S.
Why would someone want to help one of these pedophiles escape?
Oftentimes there's some sort of community incentive. Either somebody owes them a favor, or someone in the community, let's say an institution, has covered up for them in the past, and they know that if this goes to court, there's a lot of civil liability coming down the line, you know, and it's going to cost a lot of money to a lot of people, and nobody wants to deal with that.
Shauna accuses the Israeli police of not prioritizing accused pedophiles on the run.
Why do you have to be the ones that do this?
Because nobody else is. That's really, I don't have any better answer than that.
And if you guys weren't doing it?
Then nobody would do it.
Shout out to Jewish Community Watch. You know.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Seriously. It's alarming that they can just, they do it, you know, probably so many get away.
Right.
Israeli police told CBS News that, quote, the police coordinate closely with the Ministry of Justice and worldwide police organizations in order to find suspects overseas. Today, Caro faces charges in Israel, while back in the United States, the district attorney's office in Clackamas County in Oregon told CBS News they are working with federal authorities to secure his extradition. But Mordechai Yom-Tov remains at large.
The district attorney here in Los Angeles told us they have not requested Yom-Tov's extradition and that they had no other comment. Jewish Community Watch says that is the problem. If American officials don't try to get accused pedophiles from Israel, then they simply escape justice and leave children at risk. The U.S. Department of Justice declined to comment on specific cases, but praised the relationship with Israel's law enforcement, adding sex offenders have been successfully extradited in the past. Days after Cairo's arrest, Amuna confronted him at an Israeli police station.
It was good. It was good to confront him. It was important for me to have that closure in my life.
The healing process will continue for Amuna, but for many, like Mendy, the lack of justice means the pain continues.
So there are two things JCW says could help close this pathway. First, better background checks on people moving to Israel, and second, more willingness from U.S. authorities to pursue the accused.
So it certainly seems like law enforcement, both here and in Israel, are sort of busy patting themselves on the back on how well they cooperate with one another, but Jewish Community Watch seems to be doing most of that grunt work, that on-the-ground investigating. Why do they say, the group, why do they say more pedophiles aren't being apprehended?
So it's very complicated when you leave the United States and go to Israel. First, they say that once these people are wanted, that they need to go to Interpol and have the international arrest warrant put out for them so that the Israeli authorities can then start looking for them. Extradition is expensive, and a lot of these jurisdictions just don't have the money or manpower to really pursue them. And then when you get to the Israeli side, JCW says that they need...
All this talk about it being too expensive. We just saw the Rothschild $1 trillion.
Yeah, it's not about it's expensive. It's that they don't want to do it.
Who funded all these governments, the forming of Israel in its establishment, yet they can't fund like these things that would protect children from these sick fucking pedophiles, probably because that's what they are themselves. They're satanic. Fucking, you know what I'm saying?
Right. They why would they stop other people from doing it when they're probably doing it themselves?
Right. Look what happened to Epstein. How come no one on the list has been held accountable, you know?
Right.
So, but this is their thing, you know? You know who owns the media? 6 Jewish corporations own 96% of the media. Looking for the Talmud flyer. Every single aspect of the Jewish Talmud is satanic. This is what they believe. All non-Jew children are animals. When a Jew murders a non-Jew, there will be no death penalty. A man who engaged in intercourse with a girl less than 3 years of his age has done nothing.
3 years of age.
Yeah,
not even of his age.
I didn't even want to read that.
I know.
Let alone out loud.
But it's like that's in their devil book.
Jews must destroy books of the Christians, i.e. the New Testament. The non-Jews are not human, they are beasts. When the Messiah comes, every Jew will have 2,800 slaves. Jews in hell. Jesus is in hell boiling in hot excrement. If only all these cuck-conservative Christians who cuck for Israel knew that what most of the people in Israel were really thinking of, you know?
It's frozen. Yeah, seriously. If a non-Jew hits a Jew, he must be killed.
What a Jew steals from a non-Jew, he may keep. To communicate anything to a non-Jew about our religious relations would be equal to the killing of all Jews. For if the non-Jew knew what we teach about them, they would kill us openly. And I bet you this video is going to get flagged for being anti-Semitic, when all I've been doing this whole time is reading facts.
It says every synagogue in America and across the world has a copy of the Talmud, and that's all we're reading from. These are all pieces of that book.
Yep.
We're not making this up.
Synagogue say.
We're just saying what's the facts of it.
Give us a moment while she fixes the screen. Seems to have froze. It froze, huh?
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
There you go.
So, yeah. All this stuff that they get away with, every single aspect of baby penis sucking is Jewish. Don't hate the flags. That's hilarious. Shout out to GT, Goyam TV. Every single aspect of the LGBT movement is Jewish. Yep. And it goes on and on and on. Oh yeah. How about the borders? I think we got one.
I think there's a border. Yep.
Every single aspect of mass immigration is Jewish. Barbara Lerner Specter, founder of, what is that? Paideia, European Institute
for Jewish Studies.
Sweden. Europe is not going to be the monolithic society they once were in the last century. Jews are going to be the center of that. They are now going into a multicultural mode, and Jews will be resented because of our leading role. George Soros, founder and board chair of the Open Society Foundations, said, quote, "Our plan treats the protection of refugees as the objective of national borders as the obstacle.
Europe has to accept at least 1 million asylum seekers annually for the foreseeable future. The EU ought to borrow money to pay for surge funding for refugees."
Refugees.
Right. Quote unquote. Emmanuel Seller, U.S. Congressman, 39th Dean of the House of Representatives.
The Hart-Celler Act of 1965, quote, "It is the purpose of the majority of the Immigration Committee to encourage assimilation. Yet this bill has already done more than anything I know of to bring about discord among our resident aliens. Quote, I have fought against the unjust restriction of immigration." Bill Crystal, founder of Project for the New American Country, said, quote, "If things are so bad as you say with the white working class, don't you want to get new Americans in? You need people who are poor from other parts of the country, who want to get wealthy, who want to get rich, who want to move ahead in life in order to keep the country moving, because the white majority gets fat, dumb, happy, and lazy."
Wow.
And Joe Biden said, quote, "Whites will be an absolute minority in America. That's the source of our strength."
And all of those companies up there are funding it.
Yep. If only this wasn't true, you know. Go ahead and fact check the flyers. A lot of people try to cry about it, but no one is calling any of the information false. No one can debate the flyers.
Right, no one comes with any counter facts to disprove it.
The GTV leaders, they say they will stop promoting these flyers and handing out these flyers if anyone can debate them on and disprove them, which no one has been able to do. They just cry out victim and anti-Semite and
kick their feet.
So, moving on to the illegal immigration in our country, and what's coming from that. Suspect in murder of Georgia nursing student entered U.S. illegally, ICE says. Let's watch this video.
Tonight, there's anguish and anger in the small college town of Athens, Georgia, following the murder of a 22-year-old nursing student. Police are calling the tragic death a crime of opportunity. CBS's Mark Strassman reports now the suspect's immigration status has the governor blaming the White House for the woman's death.
Campus is really heavy right now. We're all heartbroken.
Heartbreak that goes with senselessness. That's what's striking here. To hundreds of people gathering at this remembrance, and to anyone who has heard the story of Laken Riley's murder.
She was devoted to making this world a better place, and we have no doubt that she would have been an incredible nurse.
In Athens, Georgia, your classic college town, the nursing student, just 22, was killed while running alone. Police found Riley's body behind this lake, a popular jogging trail, dead from blunt force trauma. Behind bars, 26-year-old Jose Ibarra, charged with her murder. And to many Americans, Ibarra has also become the new face of illegal immigration.
Lakin's death is a direct result of failed policies on the federal level and an unwillingness by this White House to secure the southern border.
ICE says the 26-year-old Venezuelan native illegally crossed the U.S. southern border in September of 2022. He was processed there and released. Now Athens police have him in custody, also struck by the senselessness.
He did not know her at all. I think this was a crime of opportunity.
This college community is grateful for a quick arrest, but like her fellow nursing students, the grief will linger for anyone in Laken Riley's world.
You think of it as the perfect college town, and now it kind of feels like the bubble is almost busted.
On the family's GoFundMe page, they said Laken was an amazing daughter, sister, and friend, adding, she'll be missed every day. Nora?
It is so heartbreaking. Mark Strassman, thank you.
The suspect in the murder of Georgia nursing student Laken Hope Riley entered the U.S. illegally from Venezuela, officials said Sunday. The suspect, 26-year-old Jose Ibarra, was arrested by U.S. Customs and Border Protection on September 8, 2022 after he unlawfully entered the U.S. near El Paso, Texas. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement said in a statement. Ibarra was released by U.S. border officials pending review of his immigration case, ICE said. According to the ICE statement, Ibarra was arrested almost a year later on August 31, 2023 by New York Police Department officers and charged with acting in a manner to injure a child less than 17 and a motor vehicle license violation. The statement did not elaborate on the details of the charges. However, the NYPD said it has no record of an arrest on Ibarra. The suspect was arrested again on Friday in connection with the murder of Riley after her body was discovered in a wooded area on the Athens campus of the University of Georgia, police said at a news briefing Friday. The Athens Clark County Superior Court on Monday denied Ibarra bail. ICE has requested to detain Ibarra if and when he's released from criminal custody so it can seek his deportation. Riley, 22, was found after a friend told police she hadn't returned from a morning run. She died of blunt force trauma. Jeffrey Clark, the police chief for the University of Georgia Police Department, said at the briefing she was a nursing student at the Athens campus of Augusta University, according to University President Brooks Keel. Clark said the suspect, who was not a student at UGA, is being held on charges that include malice murder, felony murder, aggravated battery, aggravated assault, false imprisonment, kidnapping, and hindering a 911 call. Quote, at this time, the investigation suggests that they had no relationship. End quote, Clark said. He did not know her at all. I think this was a crime of opportunity where he saw an individual and bad things happened. The University of Georgia said classes were resuming Monday. Individuals were slated for Monday afternoon for Riley and another student who died in a dorm last week. Rest in peace.
Yeah, that's terrible. And unfortunately, not the only case where things like this are happening.
No.
And I mean, looking at this, the information only shows it's going to keep happening.
Absolutely. They've been getting away with horrendous, crimes for so many years, and it's just all coming to the forefront now because of this crisis at the border.
Right.
And it's like but the Biden administration or whoever's really pulling the strings, people who've infiltrated, however deep you want to go, they're responsible for these deaths and for the decay in our society.
Right, they have blood on their hands.
For the collapse of this nation. What's it going to take for the people to wake up and push back and fight back?
Right.
Places like Georgia, that's why it's making headline news because it's a huge deal. People are upset.
Right.
And it's amazing that this college campus, which college is an indoctrination camp, essentially, where people are just woke, mostly leftists or liberals, who don't want to look at the problems as far as what's going on with the immigration and the replacement of white America. They're definitely feeling it now. So.
Right.
I hope this dude Ibarra gets murked. And we really got to fix our border situation. We need to close the border. And we need to deport every single illegal that has come here during the last 10 years.
That'll be a start.
At least. And I know I have friends who are illegal immigrants, and it pains me to say this, that we need to get rid of every single illegal. But that's what it's come to now. We can't have this anymore. We need to take our country back. And they need to be on board with it, or they can go with them. Just like when Adolf came into power, how he said every illegal immigrant who's come to this country after a certain amount of time has to go.
Right. We covered that in one of our past episodes.
Yeah. Like, we need to do that here in America.
Absolutely. It's the only thing. It's the only way that things will change for the better, and it has to start in these certain places. Otherwise, it's just going to continuously get worse.
Yeah, it's a shame.
And like that UFC fighter said, we'll turn into a third world country.
Yes. Many. I mean, you're welcome. Any of you guys are welcome to come here legally. Come here the right way. Come here with good intentions. Come here to be a proud American. Don't come here and start waving the Mexico flag and say fuck America, fuck white people. Like you know what I'm saying? Like, hate it or love it, you were colonized. You were conquered. And that's why white people settled on this land. Think of the journeys that it took for them to come here on the ships through the seas.
Right, without all the information we have today, on like how to do that,
right,
and like maps and all these things that
these people were amazing. Our founding fathers and people who fought for this country to make it what it is today. This, one of the greatest nations that the world has ever seen. Though right now we've been infiltrated, we need to take it back and completely revive our country. And I'm hopeful that it's going to happen.
Right. Absolutely.
So, yeah. If El Salvador can do it, America, so can we. I think like with national capitalism too, like bring back all our corporations, like from China, make it illegal, like to do business with the enemies. Trade only with countries who want to help improve national capitalistic economies and
Right, there's a way to do it.
Exactly. We can. I mean, I'm not saying I got the plan. And I never said I want to do everything that Uncle Adolf did today. He did a great job.
Well, there's a lot to undo.
Right.
Before we can even like re-establish things. I think a lot of undoing has to be done.
Right.
But I mean, it's very plausible. It's very doable. It's just doing it, and the people that can make this happen doing it, or all of us rising up and demanding that this be done.
Yeah. Well. I don't know. Is there anything else you want to talk about today?
I think we covered a good amount.
Well, until next time, it's been a great episode. It's been a tough episode. It's hard talking about these things without getting kind of fired up. But just trying to share the information with you people out there and let you guys know that we're all together in this.
Yes.
As freedom-loving Americans, as, people who are willing to fight for the truth. So, until next time.
Yeah, until next time.
We'll see you in the next one.